This is the I Can Do Anything podcast. My name is Colin, and today I'm back to talking about basketball. Number one, because I can do anything, but number two, because basketball is back. It's been really great having games back on. I haven't been watching. Sports in general are back, but basketball is the only one I've been watching because from what I've heard, the baseball restart is even more boring than baseball already was, if that's even possible. I never really was much of an NHL fan. I loved the Red Wings in the 90s when I was a kid. I have very fond memories of watching those games with my dad. As a big Red Wings fan, I loved playoff hockey in the 90s, watching the Red Wings, but I haven't really paid attention to hockey in the last several years, or baseball either. I was a big Cardinals fan ever since Albert Pujols. When they drafted Albert Pujols, for whatever reason, I have no idea why, really. He was obviously a really great talent, but I'm really not sure why I was so drawn to Albert Pujols. From right when he was drafted, like his rookie year, I don't remember if there was like a ton of hype surrounding him. The MLB draft is nothing like the NBA or NFL draft. There's a million rounds. They don't really highlight prospects in the MLB the way that they do in the NFL and in the NBA. But I just remember being incredibly drawn to Albert Pujols and was a Cardinals fan for his whole run in St. Louis, and then watched baseball for maybe 3 or 4 years after he left St. Louis. But yeah, my boss, who used to work for the Minnesota Twins and is still a pretty big baseball fan, even he has said that it's pretty unwatchable. And I don't know if that's because there's no fans or if the game, I don't know. Baseball is really fucking boring for the most part. But the NBA bubble has been, I don't want to use the word great. I don't know. It's been really great. It's been fun to watch. I was initially really drawn to it, obviously, that first night. The Lakers-Clippers game was great. That received really, really high ratings. There was a story that came out that they released the NBA released a story about how that, I don't know if it broke records or it just received really high ratings that were equivalent to finals in the past or playoff games in the past, or maybe it was like the equivalent or higher than the original season opener. I don't remember what it was, but great reviews and ratings from night one in that headline matchup between the Clippers and the Lakers. It's been a while since then. It's almost been a month. I'm recording this on Saturday, August 22nd, as I watch the Bucks and Magic play in Game 3 of their series, which is tied 1-1 in the playoffs in the first round of the Eastern Conference. The seeding games, I guess let's talk about, I don't know that there's tons to talk about from the seeding games in general. The Lakers weren't great in the seeding games, but they didn't really need to be. My calculation of it was that they wanted to make a statement in that game against the Clippers on opening night. And other than that, it kind of seemed like LeBron was in get everybody else into a rhythm mode. I think in years past, LeBron, and there's been a lot made of it in the media, his teams sort of coasted into the playoffs. They almost were going, it seemed like a lot of seasons downhill into the playoffs. And there was a lot made about being able to flip the switch. And LeBron himself even talked about how you can't just flip the switch and start playing good. And to a degree, he's right, because as a team, that is a lot harder to do if you don't have LeBron on your team. And even if you do have LeBron on your team, as an entire team, it is still very difficult to just flip the switch. LeBron himself, however, does have the ability to flip the switch. You could just see in those seeding games that LeBron was trying to get other people a rhythm because he can just flip the switch. He can. A lot of people. There's a lot made of LeBron and whether or not he has that killer instinct, and I don't think you win 3 championships at all. Like, you don't win 3 championships unless you're, a role. There's a lot of role players that have won a lot of championships that don't have the killer instinct, that don't make headlines, that aren't talked about as greats, even though they have a number of championships. Robert Horry, I think, is the best example of that. But LeBron, I don't know. I truly believe he's got the killer instinct. I've seen it. I think we've all seen it on a number of occasions in a number of big playoff moments where he's not only put up great numbers, but he's led his team and they've won really big games. I mean, you don't win 3 championships without winning big, difficult games. And LeBron has the ability to just flip the switch. So through those seeding games, like I said, it seemed like he was just trying to get other guys involved. He was trying to get Kuzma a rhythm. He was playing a lot through Anthony Davis, and that showed. Anthony Davis played pretty well with the exception of maybe a game or two. He sat out a game when he got hit in the eye, I believe. But other than that, yeah, Anthony Davis was great, and it seemed like he was just trying to get his shooters a rhythm. Caldwell Pope, J.R. Smith, Dion Waiters played good in limited minutes. For the most part, I think that he's going to be, if those guys all are, they just need to be able to shoot the ball well enough. I think that through these first 2 games with the Blazers, that was pretty evident that. Well, before I get ahead of myself, let's wrap up the seeding games, and then I'll get to the Lakers-Blazers series. I guess I don't really know that I have a ton else to talk about in the seeding games. I think, obviously, everybody knows Damian Lillard's great at this point. That run was really, really awesome to see. I've been on the Damian Lillard bandwagon for a while now. And I think a lot of this is probably because there are some other great point guards that aren't playing right now. Russell Westbrook, who I've been extremely critical of, I think Damian Lillard is much better than Russell Westbrook as an all-around basketball player. Just skill-wise, ability-wise, emotional intelligence, basketball IQ-wise, I think he's all around a better basketball player and point guard than Russell Westbrook. But Steph Curry's not in the NBA playoffs or in the bubble. Kevin Durant, obviously a big name. Kyrie Irving, another big name. Those guys aren't a part of the equation this time. So the spotlight is on Damian Lillard a lot heavier than it was, and the NBA kind of I don't know. I think he would have made a really historic run had the season not been postponed, but he got help from this bubble equation where if you were within 4 games, you got to do the play-in scenario, and they ended up actually being the team at the good end of the equation. They only had to win 1 game against Memphis in that play-in series or whatever, and Memphis would have had to beat Portland twice. So, you got to give credit where credit is due. Again, I'm a big Damian Lillard fan. I think that once LeBron's no longer in the league, that's my guy. But as of right now, I'm still cheering for LeBron, and it looks at this point it looks pretty good. But again, I keep getting ahead of myself. Seeding games. Some other highlights from the seeding games. Devin Booker was great. Devin Booker was really great. However, there wasn't a ton on the line. Yeah, he was playing to try to get in. But from what I remember, it was kind of a long shot. They were towards the end of the teams that were in contention to get into the playoffs. and they went 8-0. However, they were a long shot, and so to that regard, he wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't all that high stakes. Like, you can play pretty freely, and that team certainly has a lot of potential moving forward. I don't think that Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton are the answer. I don't know that Ayton is skilled enough. Now, he certainly could develop and become skilled enough, but there's not a lot of guys in the league with Ayton's skill set that are going to win championships. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I'm very critical a lot of times of media outlets, journalists, hosts of shows, analysts in that nature, who they get all excited about, like a team making a run in the playoffs or a team making a push to get into the playoffs, with the knowledge, I think, a lot of times that, like, this team's not going to do anything in the playoffs. And if you're not doing anything, like if you're not winning a championship, I don't know, I guess you have to set realistic goals as a team. So, as a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 5 years, for example, you got to set a goal to make the playoffs, and you accomplish that goal from a micro standpoint. I get it, but as a really, really external macro viewer of the NBA, in my eyes, what are you doing if you're not winning a championship? Because after you make the playoffs, okay, now let's go to the conference semifinals. And okay, we got to the conference semifinals. Now let's make it to the finals, or let's get to the conference finals and then the finals and so forth. I don't know. I just don't see, like, nobody ever goes for fourth place, and I just don't see a lot of value in a playoff run. Like, if Antetokounmpo doesn't make it to the playoffs this year, or I'm sorry, if Antetokounmpo doesn't make it to the finals this year, I consider that I don't know, not a waste of a season, obviously. I mean, he's got a really good chance to be the MVP, which I'm going to talk about. They've released the finalists for the postseason or the regular season awards, and Giannis has a really good shot to win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. I guess while I'm on the subject, I think, obviously, I'm a big LeBron fan, and what he's doing with the Lakers it's impressive, but I don't know if it's as impressive as what Antetokounmpo is doing with the Bucks. They were the number one offense, I believe. I know that they were the number one defense in the league this year, but I believe they were both. And in my opinion, Antetokounmpo, he may have all around a little more help. Like, I think maybe the Bucks are slightly deeper than the Lakers. I still really like and think that the Lakers' depth is very underrated. A lot of people talk about the Clippers' depth, but I don't think the Lakers get a ton of credit for the amount of depth that they do have, but I think maybe the Bucks are slightly deeper than the Lakers. However, they don't have the star power that LeBron does. Antetokounmpo doesn't have. Chris Middleton is what I like to call a Walmart superstar. He's just not a bona fide superstar. Sure, he may be an all-star every once in a while, but I'm not sure that as the second option, Chris Middleton is going to win you a championship. I think if Chris Middleton's going to be on a championship team, he'll probably have to be the third scoring option. And they don't have that bona fide second superstar that I think you need. I mean, you can go back and look at pretty much every team that's ever won a championship. They've got two bona fide superstars. And if they don't, I don't even know. I can. There's no team in NBA history that I can think of that didn't have a second bona fide superstar. I mean, certainly in the last 15 years that I've been pretty rigorously watching the NBA, pretty much, I mean, every team, not pretty much, every team has had 2 bona fide superstars. And in most cases, they've had 3. I mean, any of those Heat teams have had 3. Any of the Warrior teams have had 3. The Cavs championship had 3. Kyrie, I don't know. I don't know if Kevin Love is a bona fide superstar. I would consider him a star, which is, in my opinion, just slightly above a Walmart superstar. You have Walmart superstar, star, superstar, bona fide. These, it's all hearsay. Bona fide superstar, regardless. It's definitely not hearsay. That was for sure the wrong terminology. However, you get what I'm saying, right? What was I saying? The Bucks don't have a second superstar, and I think for that reason, Antetokounmpo is probably the MVP, just because he's doing it maybe more so on his own than LeBron is. Like, a lot of the reason the Lakers have had as much success that they've had is because Anthony Davis has carried a lot of the weight. He's carried a lot of the scoring load. I believe he was their leading scorer through the regular season before the suspension of play. He was their leading scorer in the seeding games. I don't know that to be true. I'm just assuming more than likely that's the case. Throughout their series with the Blazers in the playoffs thus far, he's been the leading scorer. LeBron only had 10 points in Game 2. And you know what, Colin? You keep getting ahead of yourself. Regular season. I'm talking about the MVP. It's a Saturday here, and I've been up since, well, that's not true. I did the radio this morning. I got up at 2 o'clock. I took a nap after my radio duties were done. But I'm all over the place today. And I think it's because I'm excited that I get to talk about basketball again. But I think my nod for MVP goes to Giannis, just because I think he's done a little bit more of it on his own than maybe LeBron has. However, I think Anthony Davis should win Defensive Player of the Year. I think it'd be really cool, and Antetokounmpo, in a lot of ways, is very deserving of Defensive Player of the Year. However, I guess the argument that I'm about to make would be for either Anthony Davis or Antetokounmpo winning Defensive Player of the Year over Rudy Gobert. And I don't think I think that for the most part, people either have Anthony Davis or Antetokounmpo as one or two interchangeably, and then Rudy Gobert is third. And I think that's because I think offensive ability matters when you're talking about the Defensive Player of the Year. Now, that sounds a little convoluted and, stupid, kind of. But I think a lot of being a good defensive player has to do with, well, first, your desire to play defense. That gets talked about a lot. Guys that are good at defense just downright want to play defense hard. And a lot of that has to do with how much of your energy you're using on the offensive end. The less energy and the less you're needed on the offensive end, the more energy you've got to commit to the defensive end. And because Antetokounmpo and Anthony Davis both carry so much of the load for their teams offensively, their ability to still perform really, really well on the defensive end, I think, is more valuable, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, is more valuable. No one's going to argue that Anthony Davis or Antetokounmpo are less valuable to their team than Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert essentially sets screens. He's while watching some of the Jazz games, heard that he has set the most screens this season of any player. And he just pretty much sets screens. Who knew the NBA, talk about advanced analytics and statistics. Who is the guy that's keeping track of screens set? But Rudy Gobert basically sets screens, catches lobs, gets his points on offense are putbacks and stuff that's not designed. He doesn't get plays called for him offensively. Very rarely Do they go to him in the post? And if they do, in my opinion, it's a really big mistake. Unless Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, Joe Ingles aren't on the floor, they have no business running their offense through Rudy Gobert. Unless it's in the screen and roll and he's rolling to the basket and the defense commits to whoever's in the screen and roll, whether it's any of those three, Mitchell, Ingles, or Conley, because they're both are all three of them are great in the pick and roll. And Antetokounmpo and Anthony Davis, they just carry so much of the load offensively, but are still so great defensively. I don't know the statistics, but I just think Anthony Davis is more valuable defensively to his team than Antetokounmpo is to his team. They're both great. It's really, really close. And a lot of times these things either go to voters saying to themselves, it would be pretty cool if Antetokounmpo won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think that's ever been done. Maybe it's been done once or twice, but I think Michael Jordan did it one year, but it's very rare. And voters may say to themselves, yeah, I'll vote for Antetokounmpo for MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. That would be cool if he won both. Or they'll say, well, I voted for Antetokounmpo for MVP, so I'm going to give Anthony Davis Defensive Player of the Year. That's probably not how it should be. And a lot of the journalists and people, I think for the most part, it's journalists that have the vote. I don't know like who all makes up the voting, the selection of voters. But for the most part, it's like people that cover the NBA, Rachel Nichols, like I think Stephen A., like all these guys, these like big name journalists that really heavily cover the NBA. Michael Wilbon, I know, has a vote. So I think Stan Van Gundy has a vote as well. I don't know how that committee is selected, like who becomes a voter for these awards. But I'm just really glad it's not. It's obviously for a reason, not a popular selection, just like vote in by like the way that they do the All-Star game. But it for the most part, these guys are pretty unbiased. They vote without they just purely vote on the award without looking at other things. However, the human brain can only be so unbiased. I think that a lot of times there are other factors that come into play. And I think the big one is, as a defensive player, how much value do you have first and foremost for your team defensively? How great are your statistics defensively? But then there's a little bit of, okay, so you're great defensively. And if it comes down to something really close, then okay, who's better on offense? If the defensive numbers are very similar, the Bucks are the best in the East, and the Lakers, I believe, were best defensively in the West, as Antetokounmpo, right on cue, gets a steal defensively in transition, and he makes dunking look so easy. Milwaukee is out to a big lead to start the second quarter, 42-27. They've looked really great in this game so far. I mean, the Magic suck, for the most part. They had a great game out of Vucevic, I believe, one of the V European guys, Vucevic, Villanueva. I know it's not Charlie Villanueva, obviously, but he had a great game in game one. But other than that, they don't pose much of a threat to these Bucks in the first round. I think for the most part in the NBA, there's not tons of upsets, at least in the first round. There really aren't too many upsets in general in the NBA playoffs because of, it's not like there's 1 through 16 seeds. There's only 8 seeds in each conference. But yeah, I think for Defensive Player of the Year, I go Anthony Davis. I think I'm going to give MVP to Antetokounmpo. Sixth man is probably Lou Williams again. Unless there's voter fatigue, I don't see why Lou Williams wouldn't be the sixth man unless you wanted to give it to Montrezl Harrell. I know that there's some people that are calling to give Sixth Man of the Year to both of them as they're on the same team. I don't really know how that works because one of them is the seventh man. That's a technicality. Obviously, the sixth man doesn't mean, that they're always the first guy off the bench. It's just the bench award, essentially. Who's the best bench player? And I think even that award for those two guys, like, they're almost like career, like, no matter where they go, even if Lou Williams went to a team that sucked, he would still come off the bench because that's just like sort of his identity now. So those guys, like, realistically, they could start for this Clippers team. I mean, Montrezl Harrell, in my opinion, is better than their starting four. I don't even know who it is. He's better than Zubats. I think Zubats is valuable to them, but he certainly plays more than Zubats. So I don't know. Those awards are a little bit skewed just because those two would and could be starters on a lot of teams in the NBA. So I probably give it to Lou Williams for Sixth Man of the Year. I think most improved is either Bam Adebayo or who were the finalists? It was Bam Adebayo, Pascal Siakam again. He won most improved last year. I think I give it to Bam Adebayo, and then Rookie of the Year. I don't know that one is even going to be close. And then Rookie of the Year is pretty much in the bag. Ja Morant has been really great. He was even really fun to watch in these seeding games. He's so fucking explosive. He's so electric. He needs to improve his shot. I think, he's in a lot of ways Russell Westbrook with maybe a slightly better shot. He's not as athletic, maybe like from a power standpoint. He's explosive as a jumper. He's really, really quick and fast, but he's not built the same way Russell Westbrook is currently or, has been for the last 3 or 4 years. However, if you remember, Russell Westbrook was a pretty skinny dude coming out of college, and Ja Morant is still really young. He's going to go through the NBA bulking, he's going to get bigger. That's not a question. Ja Morant will put on muscle. He'll put on weight. He'll be able to last a little longer. He'll be able to be a little more consistent as he takes those bumps in the NBA. The speed of the NBA is just so much different from what he's coming from, playing at not a major college basketball program for just 1 year. So Ja Morant's pretty easily the Rookie of the Year, and the league is in really good hands. As I transition into the playoffs, I think that's a perfect segue because there's been a lot of young guys performing really well. Jamal Murray has been really great for the Nuggets. Jokic is so good. I watched a lot of the Nuggets seeding games, and Jokic is so good. He's so methodical and just so well-rounded and such a fucking great passer. He's such a big dude. He's obviously great at setting screens. They call that offensive? Oh, wow. Interesting. Eric Bledsoe was trying to do a dribble handoff, and I don't know. I guess it's a bang-bang play. I enjoy critiquing the refs in the NBA. I'm no different than any of these guys. These guys complain so fucking much. I'm being reminded during this restart at how much NBA players complain about calls. But they get a lot of criticism. Like, Beatty criticizes them all the time and is even already getting a little fatigued on these NBA games because of how much people complain. I don't know that I really blame them. The game is so fast that, from one side of the spectrum, you could say that's a flop. There's been a lot of that too. There's been a lot of flopping. Last night, Montrezl Harrell and Luka Doncic got into it a little bit because Montrezl Harrell pretty clearly flopped, and they gave him double techs after they had some words. Just the bravado that these guys show, like they want to fight, but then they wait for the guy on their team standing right in front of them to hold them back. Like they act like they're gonna like run at them, but then it's like kind of like how guys lean on a screen. Like if you're tired and you get screened, you don't fight through it, and you just kind of, as Doug Williams would say, you found a couch to sit on. Like, oh, I got screened. Coach, look, I got screened. There's nothing I could do. Or you could fight through it. And I don't remember where I was going with that. Oh, Giannis just airballed another free throw. Oh, my God. That's so bad. Dude, he airballs free throws way too fucking much. I don't remember what I was talking about. Somehow I started talking about the playoffs again. Rookie of the year. Young guys in the NBA. There we go. We're getting back on track. Young players playing really well. Jokic, Montrezl Harrell. Oh, there it was. Hey, we got back to it. Montrezl Harrell and Jokic got into it a little bit. And Montrez pretty clearly flopped, and then, like I was talking, kind of ran at him, and then his teammate was standing in front of him, and it's kind of that I want to fight. Oh, my teammate, there he is. Did you see him stop me? He got in my way. There was nothing I could do. He got in my way, so now I can't fight. None of these guys are fighting. It's all a fucking act. They're all way tougher than I am, and I would not fuck with any of them. I was amazed that Luka Doncic was messing. I would not fuck with Montrezl Harrell, no matter where the hell I was. Even if I was in a NBA bubble where guys are gonna get fined a shit ton of money if they punch you, I'm still not taking my chances with Montrezl Harrell. Even in that game, Porzingis was getting in one of the Morris twins' faces, and those guys are notoriously tough. Like I would not fuck with those guys either. There's just certain guys in the NBA, Steven Adams, the Morris brothers, James Johnson for the Heat. I don't know if he still plays for the Heat. Antetokounmpo, just because of how much of a freak he is, I wouldn't fuck with him either. He's got such long arms that he's gonna punch you before you even know that he could reach you. And Porzingis certainly is a long dude, but he's a Euro guy and he's pretty skinny. I don't think he would stand much of a chance in a fight with one of the Morris twins. I never remember which Morris twin plays for the Clippers and which one plays for the Lakers. But going back to young talent, Jason Tatum has been great. Jaylen Brown has been good for the Celtics. The Celtics are going to sweep the Sixers. And, you know, I like to make fun of the Sixers franchise. And, you know, they deserve it in a lot of ways. This season, maybe not as much, with Ben Simmons being out for the playoffs. They showed a stat during the game last night of all the production that they're missing with Simmons out. He was first in steals, I believe, and like in the top 10 in like 3 other categories. So, you know, top 10 in 4 major statistical categories in the league. So anytime that you lose a guy of that significance, you know, early on when Simmons got hurt, there was talks about, well, maybe the Sixers will be better without him. And that's just because of his real lack of ability to shoot or create for himself really offensively. I think he can create for himself as long as the shot gets within. Oh, here we go. The ref got in between them. Wow. Just as I was talking about it. Is that Chris Middleton? No, that's Williams, and I forget that dude's name for the Magic. There were no other teammates in between them, and they're going to go to the replay here inevitably pretty soon and probably fucking take 25 minutes to review this thing. But there were no other players in between the two of them to do what I was just talking about. So they're going to block out, and the Magic player pushes him a little bit. They really did. They went at it a little bit. Oh, Ennis. So Ennis pushes him, and then he gets pushed back, and then they just kind of are holding each other's jerseys and talking. So again, these guys don't actually want to fight. And then Ennis kind of threw what looked like a punch, and he was just punching Williams's hand to get him to let go of his jersey, because Williams was holding his jersey and he was quite sick of it, and there was a ref that ran in between them, and it almost looked like he punched the ref, but he was just punching Williams' hand off of, from having a hold of his jersey. I wouldn't be surprised if Ennis got fined pretty significantly for this. Certainly, he'll probably get ejected from this game, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he missed a game. Not that it'll matter for this series. Ennis isn't a huge contributor. I mean, he certainly plays minutes pretty significantly for the Magic, but the Magic don't have a shot in the dark to win this series anyways. But I wouldn't be surprised if he got fined for that. So here it is again. They're blocking out, and Ennis they bump a little bit. Ennis throws Williams off of him, and then Williams comes back at him. They kind of push each other. Ennis pushes back. Williams pushes back, and then as they're talking to each other about how much they don't want to actually fight, as Williams has a hold of his jersey, Ennis throws what looks like a punch that sort of hits the ref a little bit. He's really just trying to get his hand off of his jersey. I sort of wish that I had the volume up on this game right now to hear what everybody was saying about it. I don't know that I'm going to know the outcome of this until I see players walking away, like players walking out because they were ejected. So I don't even remember what I was talking about before this. I was obviously just segueing away from talking about how much these guys don't want to fight. And I thought that was going to be an example of maybe they do want to fight. There's no players or refs or anybody to get in between them. One of the refs sprinted down there to get in between them, but before he got down there, I mean, they had plenty of time to throw punches. And instead they're just they looked like they were dancing a little bit. Williams was holding his jersey, kind of saying, hey, man, you look good in that jersey. Can I take it off for you? Yeah, they were just kind of looking at each other like, are you going to hit me first or should I hit you first? Do you want to fight? I don't really want to get fined. Should we fight? Okay, there's a ref in between us. Now let's act like we want to fight. Okay, now that there's a bunch of people, now I want to fight. This is going to take so fucking long. They've showed this replay so many times. Just give them both a tech and let's move on. Holy fuck. That leads into, so there was a lot of controversy about I know that there was a lot of talk about the Porzingis ejection. I thought that the first technical was pretty fucking stupid, like most people. Obviously, the league doesn't want these players showing up the refs. I don't know that he really showed the ref up that much. I think I've seen guys do a lot worse than throw a punch in the air. And that's all he did, really. He didn't get a call, or there was a call. I don't remember which one it was. I don't know if he didn't get a call or there was a call that he disagreed with. That was his first tech. And then the second tech, he's got to show more restraint to not go in there and be an escalator, is what the NBA calls it. They don't want guys stepping into altercations that escalate, so that they're trying to de-incentivize guys by giving them technicals for jumping into altercations and joining or escalating an altercation. So from that standpoint, you got to know that you have one tech, and you got to know that you can't jump in. So I think that one was a little more deserving. He still didn't do shit, he still got in there, pushed a little bit, but ultimately was just trying to get in the mix a little bit, and ultimately just ended up helping create separation between the two players, Doncic and I think it was one of the Morris twins again. So Ennis is leaving the game. He's been ejected from what it looks like. Will likely get fined, is my prediction. And Williams is leaving as well. I think that, I don't know. So you can tell me how much time that just took, but they're playing again. Wasn't quite 25 minutes, but they came to a conclusion that, did I not say that from the very beginning? I saw it happen. I reacted in real time. I watched maybe 3 to 4 replays, made my decision, and my decision was their decision. it just takes them so long, and maybe it doesn't really matter. Maybe it's good that they're reviewing it a shit ton to look at all the angles and get all the different perspectives from the guys in Secaucus at the replay center and the 3 refs at the game. Maybe it doesn't really hurt all that much that they spend so much time, but when they spend so much time on making sure a call is right in the final moments, it just really ruins the flow and gives teams, extra timeouts essentially, and kind of just hurts the integrity of the game. You obviously want to get the call right, but I just think that there's such, if you're a longtime listener of the I Can Do Anything podcast, I harp on this all the time. There should be another ref that reviews every single play in real time and just buzzes into an earpiece to the refs who are on the court. Hey, that wasn't out on him, it was out on the other guy. And they just quickly change it. Or, hey, yeah, he probably should have called a foul on that. He pretty clearly hit him on the arm. Or, no, he got the ball for the most part, and that wasn't a foul. At the next, or just, I don't know. There are better ways to do this. It just takes so fucking long. But like I was saying, young players in the NBA, certainly very promising from Ja Morant. Jaylen Brown that's where I was. Jaylen Brown and the Celtics are going to sweep the 76ers, and they're missing a lot without Simmons. But, where do the 76ers go from here? The 76ers are going to have an interesting offseason. Simmons, hurt again, is kind of seeming a little bit injury prone. It'll be interesting to see what the 76ers do this offseason there's a lot of people calling for breaking up Embiid and Simmons. They've really not gotten... This year would have been a really good, if they both would have been healthy, would have been a really good gauge for them. We played the Celtics in the first round. If they would have beat the Celtics in the first round, who are playing well, the Celtics still are pretty young, but Kemba Walker is their sort of veteran leader now. At least their veteran scoring leader. They've got older guys that aren't necessarily as big of contributors to the team, but Kemba Walker isn't proven obviously in the playoffs. This is, I think, his second or third. It might not even be his third trip to the playoffs, and he's never made it past the first round. And then they got young talent in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, but those two are playing really well. On that first night, Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, Luka Doncic, and Jason Tatum all had really huge games. The young talent has been fun to watch. Zion Williamson, Ja Morant, Devin Booker. There's just a lot of young talent. I don't think that they're necessarily as much of a draw. I don't think anybody is tuning in for those guys deep in the playoffs the same way that they might tune in for Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant. And some of that may just be because those guys are established names now. They've got those guys have they're must-see basketball, and people know that now. And not everybody knows these young guys' names the way that they know those guys' names, obviously, because they haven't won championships and made deep playoff runs. Kawhi Leonard, these bona fide superstars in the NBA. But those guys are the future. They are the future bona fide superstars. I think Luka Doncic I think he's got the most upside of all of them. I think Luka Doncic is going to win multiple championships. He's going to be one of the greats in this league. He's putting up really great numbers as a rookie in the playoffs. He's been in conversation. I think there was a couple stats where he was mentioned with Kareem. No, not Kareem. Bill Russell. I don't know. One of the all-time greats in terms of points as a rookie in the playoffs or points in a game, or I don't remember what the stat was, but I think Doncic has the most upside. Jamal Murray is really great. I really like him. I don't know that he's a bona fide superstar. I don't know. The Nuggets are still a couple pieces, probably a couple years away. It's going to take a LeBron retirement probably it's probably going to take several guys not being in the picture anymore. I think that the Nuggets and Jamal Murray and Jokic are probably 5 to 6 years away. I don't know if it's yet to be determined. Obviously, you're not a winner until you win. You know, like people say that so-and-so is not a winner or they don't have what it takes to win. And you only have what it takes to win once you win. Like, before you win, you didn't have what it takes. And then you win, and now people say, oh, he has what it takes. So, I don't know. I don't like to speculate all that much on whether or not somebody... I mean, maybe I do. I guess I kind of do. I like to shit on people for not being... I don't know. For not being good enough. For not being fucking... Being a Walmart superstar, or just somebody that's just hanging out in the league to make money and fuck chicks and play the game they love. It's hard to knock these guys, you know. They're making millions of dollars playing a game they love, and before coronavirus, traveling all over the world and whatnot, and it's hard to knock them, you know. Shit, I'd love to be in the fucking NBA. But yeah, the young talent in the NBA is great. The playoffs have been really fun to watch. I should talk about the Blazers-Lakers series just because I think that's the most interesting series thus far. So Chuck said that he thought the Blazers were going to sweep the Lakers. That's Charles Barkley. And obviously I think he's, you know, there's some merit to it. I think that the Lakers, who didn't play well in the seeding games, in my opinion, they were just coasting to the playoffs because they were already the 1 seed. And LeBron was just trying to get everybody involved. I think they would have won more games in the seeding games if LeBron would have been treating those games as if they were playoff games. But because they weren't, you know, it sounds like an excuse, but, you know, you have to save yourself in the NBA. It's part of it. It's a long journey to the playoffs, and the playoffs are a long journey themselves. And LeBron, from experience, knows that, you know, you got to build these other guys up, and you got to save energy, and you really do have to get momentum and confidence in your guys that maybe have less confidence. Streaky shooters need to have good games and to build up confidence to play well in the playoffs, and that's exactly what a lot of the Lakers' makeup is. So it was kind of a perfect storm for that kind of prediction for Barkley. You know, the Lakers were underwhelming in the seeding games, and the Blazers were the exact opposite of that. Damian Lillard was great, CJ McCollum was great, and the Blazers surged, and they gained a lot of the headlines and press. And they certainly have a chance to beat the Lakers, but they're not. I mean, everybody is shitting on Charles because they know that obviously the Blazers were never going to sweep the Lakers. I think Chuck himself knew that. He's just trying to make for entertaining TV. But Game 1 and Game 2 were very, very different games. The Lakers shot very poorly from the field in Game 1. I think Caldwell Pope was like 0 for 8 or 0 for 9 from 3 in that game. And LeBron played pretty well for the most part. Anthony Davis, again, played pretty well. But the Lakers as a team did not shoot the ball well at all in that game. So, yeah, the final score of that game, 100-93. Damian Lillard finished with 34 points. C.J. McCollum, 21 points. LeBron finished with 23. Anthony Davis, 28. But the Lakers, as a team, let's see, shot 35% from the field and 15% from 3. The Blazers from the field shot 39% from the field and 38% from 3. 13 made threes for the Blazers and only 5 made threes. Holy shit. Yeah, that's a big discrepancy, 38 and 15%. 5 of 32 were the Lakers from 3 in that game. And then in Game 2, a really big difference. I mean, LeBron, I think the biggest noteworthy thing in that game was LeBron James getting a 111-88 victory where he only had 10 points. I mean, the contribution off the bench was great. They had Howard with 9, well, a lot of it was garbage points. Like J.R. Smith, most of his points were garbage points. But they just shot the ball really efficiently, much better from 3, 14 of 38, 36% from 3, and 47.8% from the field, whereas Portland shot 40 from the field and 27.6% from 3, 8 of 29 from 3, and 34 of 85% from the field. C.J. McCollum only scored 13. Damian Lillard only had 18, and a pretty key injury to Damian Lillard's left pointer finger, I believe. A dislocation of the finger that looked pretty fucking gnarly on TV. They had a great shot of it, like his, the biggest bone that bends your finger was like pretty significantly above, like almost poking. It wasn't poking out, but you could see a pretty significant lump in his finger where it was dislocated, and that's going to play a factor. There's a lot of guys that have played with dislocated fingers and fucked up fingers. Kobe Bryant, most notably, played through a lot of finger injuries, and I think his fingers were broken, and he still played. The main fingers on his shooting hand were broken, and still played really well. I think it's still a factor. Like, I think in a lot of cases, regardless of how well Kobe played with those broken fingers on his shooting hand, he probably would have played better had they not been broken. I think that's really not, like anybody with any kind of reason would say that you're probably going to shoot better if your finger is not broken. So even though it's not on Lillard's shooting hand, I think that'll still play a factor. The series is tied 1-1, but the Lakers have a lot of the momentum. I think that was such a lopsided game. It was even a lot closer, or it wasn't even as close as the score indicates. That game was over that game was over 5 minutes into the third quarter. The Lakers blew it up to like 22 points, or they blew it up to 20 points, and the Blazers called timeout, and then they extended it out of the timeout, and it was a 30-point game at one point. I don't think LeBron or Anthony Davis played at all in the fourth quarter, so there was significant garbage time in that game, and the Lakers just looked so much better, and I think that they carry the momentum from that game. You add on Damian Lillard's injury, you add on that now Collins, who everybody's making a big deal about, or going into the series, Zach Collins being out is going to hurt the Blazers a lot, and certainly he's a contributor to their team. I don't know that he's maybe as significant as people were making him out to be, but they're certainly going to miss him at least a little bit. He's now out for the season and leaving the bubble, I believe. Regardless, he's not playing anymore because of an ankle injury. So I think the momentum is pretty heavily on the Lakers side. My prediction is that they win the rest of the games. Now in the bubble, normally the Trailblazers would be going home to play games 3 and 4, but in this case, they're just still in the bubble. So I think that gives the advantage to the Lakers. Essentially, you're playing. You're not essentially. You are playing a what is that called? Neutral stadium. So I don't know. Yeah, I think the Lakers finish them off and win the series 4-1 without any more hiccups. And the Blazers go out in the early rounds again. An unfortunate draw as an 8 seed playing against the Lakers, but again, it'll be an interesting offseason again I don't know. I don't think the Blazers will shake too much up. I think that they had a bad beginning of the year and played well towards the end of the year before the suspension, played really well in the bubble, but I think I think the Blazers probably give it one more season before they start to say, okay, what do we need to do here? And the Blazers just might be one of those teams that are really great, but just never do anything. Like, I could see Damian Lillard, unfortunately, as much as I like the guy, and as young as he still is, I don't see Damian Lillard winning a championship in Portland. I just don't know if they're going to get a guy that they need to get in order for them to win. And he seems like, I don't know, I guess it seemed like Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant would never leave Oklahoma City. It seems like a lot of these guys would never leave, and then they do. It seemed like LeBron would never leave Cleveland, and he did. So that's my prediction. I think maybe Damian Lillard goes and plays somewhere else in the next 2 to 3 years. I'm not sure what his contract situation is. I think he's in a contract for the next 2 to 3 years. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Damian Lillard. There was speculation that he'd maybe go play with LeBron. I would love that so much. That would be so awesome if Damian Lillard, in the peak of his career, I think Damian Lillard will be in his peak for the next 3 to 4 years, and he'll still be great for the next 7 to 8 years. It'd be really awesome if in the next 3 years he went and played with LeBron at the end of LeBron's career during Anthony Davis's height. This is certainly probably Anthony Davis is in the middle of probably his peak, which could last for, I don't know, maybe another 3 to 5 years. Probably 3 more likely, but it'd be awesome if those 3 teamed up. I think that's a guaranteed championship in a lot of ways. There's no championship guarantee, obviously, but that is what I'm pulling for. That would be really fucking awesome. In terms of other playoff matchups, I don't know. I mean, all these other series are not all that intriguing to me. Heat and Pacers isn't very intriguing at all. Those guys play later today. The Heat are up 2-0. The Bucks are blowing out the Magic 70-43 right now at halftime. They're about to go up 2-1. The Rockets and the Thunder, Houston's up 2-0 without Russell Westbrook. I believe he may play today. So I don't know. They probably extend that. They probably sweep the Thunder. And then Celtics and 76ers is about to be over with Luka Doncic's ankle injury at the end of the game last night. Kawhi Leonard played really fucking great last night. They're going to probably close that series out. They probably won't lose again. If the Mavs don't have Doncic, they don't stand a chance against the Clippers. I don't think they really ever stood much of a chance at all. They won one game, and that's kind of what makes sense. You get a great game from Porzingis and Doncic, and they win a game. Paul George played really bad in that game, and that was kind of the perfect storm. But that made sense for the Mavs to get one game and then for the Clippers to close it out. The Raptors are going to sweep the Nets. That one's the most boring series of them all. And then Nuggets and Jazz has been great. Donovan Mitchell was great in the last game. I think aside from the Lakers and Blazers, that's the most intriguing series. That feels like it should be a second round matchup that we got in the first round. And there's a lot of that, especially in the Western Conference. There's some really great. I mean, Celtics and Sixers is probably seems more like a second round matchup. Even Clippers Mavs, with as young as the Mavs are, seems kind of like a second round matchup. But that is probably the second most intriguing series. Look for that series to probably go pretty deep. The Nuggets got blown out in the last game, but that's probably going to be a really great series going forward. And I look forward to the rest of these series. I'm really excited to watch Lakers Blazers again tonight, and I think that's about all I got today. I'm gonna get back on now that the playoffs is in action. I'm back at this. I'm committed to it, and this was fun. I started recording, thinking why I don't know if I have anything to say about these playoffs. I don't know if I have anything to say about the seeding games that people haven't already heard. And here we are, like almost an hour in. So enjoy the rest of the playoffs. Let me know what you think about that was cool that happened with as I was talking about how much these guys don't want to fight. That was cool that literally happened in real time. I enjoy watching a game while I'm recording, and think I'll be doing this more often. I'm going to try to do 2 episodes a week throughout the rest of the playoffs. So if you're listening, hold me to it, It would help. Get on me a little bit about it. Let me know if you want to hear from me. Dad. Okay, thanks for listening, folks. This has been the I Can Do Anything podcast. Have a great rest of your weekend, if I post this by then.